Hello everybody, today we're testing two big family SUVs named Toyota Highlander and Mazda CX-9. You're watching 2HP, my name is Ralph. And right now I'm going to do some tastefulness, because we're going to discuss with you the exterior of these cars. If you look at Highlander, it's obvious that it has a masculine beginning. There are a lot of stamps, monograms. In fact, if this one was painted, for example, in white pearl, it would remind me of an Imperial Stormtrooper. If we look at Mazda CX-9, it seems to me that this is, such a stylish urban beauty. The car is more elegant and I would say more proportional. Most of all, I like Mazda CX-9 externally in 3/4 from the front, and least of all, I like it from the side. The same I'm ready to say about Highlander, because here is this awful stamp which goes to the back of the car. It pisses me off from time to time, but you can put up with it, because most of the time you don't see it anyway, because you're inside the car. The main complaint to Mazda is not about the proportions. The main complaint to Mazda is not about the smoothness of lines. No, it seems to me there is a conflict between consumers, between clients of the brand. I'm sure that owners of Mazda CX-3, CX-30 and CX-5 are happy that in the rear-view mirror it is almost impossible to distinguish Mazda CX-9, because this design is matryoshka style. But here is when a person buys a conditionally high-status Mazda CX-9, I think that he generally suffers when periodically his car is confused, for example, with CX-5 in the traffic. Both cars have keyless access, both cars have absolutely decent key fobs. Although the Mazda is all the same garnish. Although I really don't like this show-off, this location of the buttons on the rib, because they're small, it's uncomfortable for me. Moreover, what useful function does this plastic overlay fulfill? Everything is clear with Toyota, though the buttons are also petite, and it would be desirable bigger, because it is obvious that Highlander is the car for people with a big bone. Well, I would say so, not to offend, for example, myself. Both cars have keyless access and, of course, electric tailgate. And, dear friends, I will now try to answer your question, why I have recently become a frequent and thorough talk about the electric tailgate. Believe me, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, it would not have occurred to me to tell you about these things, but it turned out that horsepower, torque, handling is of no interest to you at all. The main thing is to have an electric tailgate, to have an Android Auto, to have large monitors, because the modern car buyer is not a driver. The modern car buyer is a user, a gadget user. A gadget called Mazda CX-9 and Toyota Highlander. This is why I have to tell you that both cars have electric trunk. My car doesn't have an electric tailgate, and I have not suffered from it for all 12 years. That in general and advise you. Though I understand that you will suffer till the end of your days if you do not receive this magnificent option. By the way, I shall add it once. There will be no variance on a theme that you have approached the automobile, have moved a foot, have jumped up, have made so or so, nothing. This is a Japanese car, which each technology must be rolled back 15 years for it to appear at you. Therefore, neither there nor there you will be able to open anything with a gesture with your feet. Remember this. Use the key fobs, use the buttons inside the cabin. Braking, as always, at 60 km/h. Highlander's best ranking is 11 meters 15 centimeters. The worst result is 12.04. The arithmetic average of 3 runs was 11 meters 56 centimeters. The first attempt on the CX-9, 12.78. The second was 13.12. The third was 1265. The average is 1280. And here Toyota wins, stopping 1 meter 24 centimeters earlier than Mazda. Of course, this is also a tire competition, which I'm reminded of by our audience and demand to take cars on the same wheels and with the same tires for the test, which is impossible. So guys, let's decide if you need the braking challenge as it exists or if we're throwing out of the test. Write your comments. During the filming, our creative team, which is not a small one, 3.5 people, had a serious argument and even a discussion about whether we should focus on the features of the cabin, how much space there is, or whether we should show the most interesting things in the comparative test. For example, how the headlights work, to skim the engine power, repositioning, and so on and so forth, when the car is really in action, instead of me telling you about some subjective feelings and that with the height of 1 meter 90 centimeters I do not fit anywhere. Here is such news: I do not fit anywhere, although I should in Highlander and CX-9. Well, write it all in the comments. I still have to get to the third row of seats, because our cars are big. To tell you how is it there, well, a little bit about the features of these cars. We have already made a test drive of Toyota Highlander separately. Here I will run through just the main features, what I like and what I didn't like in this car. Well, of course, I absolutely loved this center console, because it reminds me of a Sharp 777. For those who don't know, Google it. It was an iconic item for the 90s. Why does it remind me? Because it's huge, it has so many buttons. In this case, the Japanese are careful people, but in the company Toyota, twice. So they decided that the consumer himself must decide what buttons he likes. So there is a touch screen, there are analog buttons, manipulators, toggle switches and even voice input. In general, choose what you want. There is everything to choose from. The Japanese themselves, I understand it, have not yet fully decided what you need to be completely happy. Of course, I really like the 360-degree camera in Toyota. It's a powerful and useful option for a big car with high ground clearance and all-wheel drive system, because you're expected to hit at least some light off-roading sometimes. That's a fat plus. Also very good that Toyota has a heating windshield, seats heating, seats ventilation. And by the way, I'll have to check whether there is ventilation on the rear seats. Other than that, we have 3-zone climate control here for the 2 front passengers and for the second row of seats. For the third row of seats, I'm sure there are air vents. The seats here are great for people who have wide bones, because the seats are wide, soft, without developed side support, because these same seats don't understand the scale of your sides. And that's right, when the seats are made, then just like good quality paws. What I don't like in Highlander, I don't like the culture of assembly. Yes, you have seen the test drive of Info car, who almost completely removed the torpedo. After it, the situation with the torpedo did not improve. So there are things like that. But here you should probably blame not only the American assembly, but also the fact that Ukrainian masters installed the alarm system in this car, and probably the whole thing lost its airtightness. Here everything should be checked and rechecked, but yes, I don't like it. But I like the quality of the material, everything is good, everywhere you need leather, everywhere you need polished inserts. Well, the glossy plastic, okay, there's not much of it, and it's basically in its place to hide the small size of this monitor. Very roomy, big panoramic roof. There's definitely much more space here than in Mazda CX-9. The pillars aren't bent over, they're not huge, you're not likely to hit a lot of pedestrians when you're cornering, but you can hit some in Mazda because the pillars are really bent over. But we'll talk about that in Mazda. Now let's move to the second and third row of Toyota seats. Once again, if you want some grandiose details about Highlander, you can always watch the tests on our channel. The armrest is like something out of the movie Deep Throat because, well, up to my elbow fits. A huge compartment, but I don't know, it's like a little suitcase in an airplane. Plenty of space, I like that. It would be nice if there was a fridge, and I'm sure there are probably some configurations that offer the same fridge. Let's move on to the second row. The second row of Toyota Highlander seats are so grandiose that if there was no roof, I would walk right into it, and it would be absolutely fine. Because now the front driver's seat is adjusted for me, and as you understand, there is very much space. If we're not talking about space for my head. Here is this roof, cool panoramic roof. It steals 3 or 5 centimeters of space, and that's why here on the back seat, pay attention, I put my head here. But I don't want to repeat my favorite joke about that if I take off my hat, my haircut won't be like that. Even with the hat off, nothing changes. I am putting my head against the roof. The good news is that we can adjust this backrest, so I can practically lie down in the car, not put my head, and end up on a plane with, you know, MAU business class. That is when the seats can fit not only midgets and people below average height. I don't want to offend dwarfs, I just want to offend MAU, although already what to offend them, coronavirus it may have finished. Okay, we have 2 cup holders here, a nice armrest. Now I get out of the car and try to get in the third row of seats. By the way, yes, we have heated seats and we have the climate control unit as well. Great story. There are 2 more USBs down there. The main thing is not to get beer all over it. And so I'll go out and in again. I wish I could do it as elegantly as gymnasts can do it. So the seat slid away and I found a Mary Poppins umbrella. It's not a commercial at all. Okay, I'm here. Now we're doing this to adjust the back of the seats like this. There's a third row. Well, as you can imagine, I'm having a hard time getting to it. Okay, well, that's all about it. Well, this is how the third row looks like, but as you understand, there is no space for the head. There is no place for the feet of a person with a height of 1 meter 90 centimeters. Well, here a person with 80 centimeters height and very short legs will definitely feel good. At the same time, I can improve my situation, expand my living space by reclining the seats. That's fine, but I take it that I'm completely killing the trunk of this car. But that's probably the way it's designed. You have to understand, if you want to ride with 6 people, you will have a modest trunk. If you want to ride with 5 or 4 people, the trunk will be large. If you're gonna ride with 2 people, then you will have your own apartment. Toyota is expectedly shaky on the Serpentine. Large suspension range, clearance and dimension do their job. Mazda too, it's not a small mani, but I feel like its suspension was tuned for asphalt and rather high speed. The main thing is that there is a sensation that Highlander settings are for the USA and the settings of CX-9 for Europe. And now we shall impose one video on another and look at the difference in steering. As for the results, at the finish line, Mazda is winning Toyota by at least a 1 body. In terms of time, Toyota 12:52, Mazda 11:64. Against the background of the farmhouse-style Toyota Highlander, the Mazda CX-9 is, you know, a real Japanese BMW in the cabin. Here everything looks very elegant, very high quality, very well thought out. And it's obvious that not only engineers have sat here, but designers as well. And probably this is the reason why there are fewer different pockets, less different chopped corners, and everything looks very elegant. I like the multimedia system very much because, unlike fans of Toyota, in Mazda they understood that we should have the system like an iDrive. Everything will be laconic and everything will be controlled practically from one puck, which is on the central console. It's very right and it's very true. As for the options, I like the fact that there is a heated steering wheel, heated ventilated seats, but we have no heated windshield. In terms of build quality, well, you know, in quality of build, Mazda CX-9 looks much more cooler than Toyota Highlander. And I have to say at once that while driving Toyota, sometimes something cracks, something crunches. It's not good, it also depends on the quality of the roads, but Mazda CX-9 interior looks more solidly built. Well, and of course, these seats have developed side support. A thread you'll see with stitching, everything says about real attention to details. But as for the rear view camera, there are no 360 degrees. We must wait for the next generation of Mazda CX-9. Also, I don't like that there is a black roof. In general, we would like to have a grand panoramic roof, but everything was limited to this hatch. By the way, there is a cool windshield projection both in two cars, but Toyota Highlander, that came out a little bit later than Mazda CX-9, has also a sign recognition system and many other useful electronic assistants that are visualized right there in front of the hood. Mazda does not have such abundance. But it's clear in general because, once again, I repeat, Mazda CX-9 has been in the market longer than Highlander. Highlander is new, however, Mazda is model proven by time. I move to the second row of seats. Yes, when you test the Mazda CX-9, pay attention to the thickness of the door cards. Here 10-12 centimeters, and it directly affects the cool noise insulation of the interior. The door cards are just like a work of art. Look how everything is cut, look how everything is drawn, look how everything is assembled. If we're talking about knees on the second row of seats, the Mazda CX-9 also has a lot of space, but for some reason it seems to me that it's narrower than Toyota Highlander. And the Highlander has a flat floor, but here we have a tunnel. Of the good news, heated rear seats, separate climate control for the second row passengers, all it's present. I'm checking now. Can I recline the seats? Voila! Can I flip those all over seat backs? Yes, we can. Can I lay out here as I do in Toyota? Yes, I can. Do I have an armrest? I have an armrest. In addition to having an armrest, there is a special section here. I once joked that it was a section for sandwiches, and some advanced person said that I was a moron. I agree with that, by the way, not realizing I was joking. But at the same time, I was like, what's the point of this section? That there's this flat stuff you can put in here? A tablet? Well, maybe a tablet. A mobile phone? Well, probably a mobile phone. It's got two USB connectors, by the way. Okay, now, don't repeat that in real life, because there are specially trained stuntmen like me for that. Now I'm going to load into the third row of seats of Mazda CX-9. But before I move to the third row of seats, I wanted to tell you that here is this perforated leather, and in general, this interior material I want to touch forever. I do not have such feelings in Toyota for some reason, I don't know why. I have to think. Oh, I keep forgetting, because I have so many stories for you about these cars that I keep forgetting what I wanted to tell you for one simple reason. I never write scripts for my tests, and that's probably too bad, or maybe not. So look, here and there is a curtain. Toyota Highlander has a curtain, only also here is such a cool diode lighting. Now I've got to remember, there is no diode lighting in the Toyota. There, I see right from here, you can say halogens, and we have xenon. Alright, that's it. It's time for the third row. Let's not pull the cat by the tail. By the way, cat in Japanese sounds like bakeneko. Let's not pull bakeneko by the tail. So we moved aside the third row, and oh, the third row of seat is stitched with the same luxurious leather or eco leather. When it's good leather, you seldom can distinguish it from real leather. Besides, already here, for example in Mercedes, there is a synthetic leather Arctic, so I like it more, in fact, that they're real leather. I hope Mercedes can't hear me right now. So about the third row of seats. There is not enough space for my head, but there was plenty of space for my head because there is punching. Here we have design solutions from Mazda when the car is so plastic dynamic, aerodynamic, and here goes lowering of the roof. I have sat down on the third row of seats. Although Mazda CX-9 seems narrower, the impression is that it's longer because I feel more comfortable here on the third row of seats. And also I have just found out these two USB sockets besides cup holders. The USB connector for the third row of seats. What kind of holy people do you have to be to even think about such an important details? Because here children can sit with their tablets and phones, will play games, and all these gadgets will die without USB connector. They will blow your mind until you get there and give them to grandma and grandpa. One more question. Can I put the backs of the rear seats down? Oh, I cannot unfold the backs of the rear seats. That's the only position I'm offered. And in general, it's clear that the trunk is not grandiose size. Remember about it, and you will be happy. We know very well that Mazda has SCBS, and on CX-30 it works perfectly. Toyota has a similar electronic assistant called PCS. And right now we're starting to test the electronic safety system. I have to say that the collision avoidance system in Toyota Highlander, as you can see, worked, and I think worked halfway, because inside the car the signal sounded and the brake sign appeared on the dashboard. But the car itself also had to help me slow down or stop the car completely. As you understand, it did not happen. The car didn't stop, didn't save, couldn't, but warned me. Attempt number 2. Don't think anything that Toyota suddenly started helping me. No, it's just that I've already started helping my volunteer helpers who need to pick up boxes every time. Everything is still the same, everything is stable. Toyota warns but doesn't slow down. My last attempt will be with the active cruise control on. In principle, in this mode, Toyota should not stop or should only slow down when several cars are moving. In everything, we give it one last chance. This is the mode of active cruise control, and we go to Mazda CX-9. But here we expect without the declaration of war as we drove. Well, the system SCBS worked as written in the manual. A signal, then we see a warning on the windshield projection screen, and also at the end we see an inscription on the dashboard that the SCBS system worked. And indeed we have a distance now about 1.5 meters or 2 meters. The car has braked out. Let's go to a second attempt. By the way, we will not use cruise control in this case, because the active cruise control on this generation of Mazda CX-9 just does not exist. Excellent. Perfect. A little bit intimidated, but great. The second attempt, everything is excellent, and we would like to troll again the company Volkswagen, which with their radars cannot see all these boxes in vinyl. And here's the opinion of VAG lovers. The snaggy Mazda hears if it shouldn't see anything at all, and it gets the job done. Probably they will cut it out, and maybe not. In general, I'm completely satisfied with Mazda CX-9. It does everything it promises in the manual. That's a good thing. Behind the scenes, by the way, I was just recently berated by a subscriber. I get scolded all the time, so I have to respond to that. Respond properly. You know what they say? Constructive criticism. Fuck you, there's no constructive criticism. I still get offended. Alright, that's it. So they asked, get a man who is not 1 meter 90 centimeters, but with a normal height, so that we understand how comfortable in the car. So there he sits, a normal person who is 1 meter 70 centimeters. I sit on the second row of seats of Mazda CX-9 so that I'm comfortable. So, are you comfortable? You can shake your head, the microphone doesn't work. If it's confident, do it like this, yes. And if it's uncomfortable, well, lie. Maybe you'll get paid by Mazda. Okay, let's move to the third row of seats and the second row of seats of Toyota Highlander to be, like, honest to the end. For you to understand that I'm not lying. Here I am, and here's a 1 meter 70 centimeters. 1 meter 70 centimeters, please. Here we are, we're like this. Here, he with his normal height is now gonna go to the third row of seats of Toyota Highlander, and I'm gonna go to the second row and try to strangle him. Here I sat in the second row of Toyota seats. So I was comfortable, I was really comfortable. Well, except for my head, which we talked about, and now let's look at our test dummy. Well, where is more space? Is it smaller one? Yes. Is it much smaller? Yes. Why is that? The car is wider, isn't it? Oh, can you just put your feet under the seat? This is a serious argument. The thing is, it's true. Sometimes the seat is set up that these Bigfoot paws of yours, they can't get under the seat, and it also steals the extra space. And the seats are very hard, because they're thin, to give you, like, more space. Yeah, and you got less room and thin seats. Yeah, and for some reason, your head looks out of the trunk, I think. No, you're a feature. This is a Highlander cabriolet, if you need it for naughty children. We started at a speed of 50 kilometers per hour to make sure that on such mastodons it's possible to do this exercise without damage to manpower and equipment. It turns out that it's possible without any problems. At 60-65 it was even somehow easy, without any alarms. To my deepest surprise, everything is possible even at 70 kilometers per hour. All miracles end at 75. After 2 attempts, I realized that this exercise can get stuck for a long time. Mazda at 50 is so stable that I do the second attempt at 70 kilometers per hour right away. Here, traction control intervenes in the story, which has its own particular opinion on the situation, but we passed the changeover. After that, I managed to roll to 65, where everything is good and predictable again. Further on is even more interesting. I passed the 75 mark without much effort. It's not a feat, just work. The feat starts somewhere around 78-80 kilometers per hour, where I almost win, but in fact I die, not having time to save mankind. Nevertheless, the scoreboard is Mazda 75, Toyota 70. And now we have moved to the tuning studio of the club Dark Horse, where we will measure the engine power of Toyota Highlander and Mazda CX-9. Because today we're talking a lot about our subscribers who are criticizing us because many subscribers write, "Here Ralph stopped measuring Toyota engine power," or because Toyota is always bad and he's hiding these terrible facts from the whole humanity and Ukrainian car enthusiasts for money. Guys, this is all a conspiracy theory, of course. It's just that all of these things are time-consuming, money-consuming, costly on everything. And you bitches don't want to slap like and don't even want to repost this powerful comparison test. So if next time we don't get a million views, blame yourself. You'll be watching stupid rides again, where a stupid blogger tells you, "I think the car doesn't drive." We don't count anything, we show everything and prove everything. Mazda petrol engine is 2.5 turbo 4-cylinder, claimed power of 231 horsepower. The torque is 420 Newton meters. Several measurements resulted in 231 horsepower and 386 newtons of torque. Horsepower matched, torque is 34 less. The main measurements were made in third gear. Toyota has an atmospheric V6 petrol engine with 249 horsepower. The torque is 356 newtons. In this Toyota, surprisingly, everything went nice and fine, because in older versions the manual mode was unfair. That is, you put in fourth gear, hit the accelerator to the floor and the transmission downshifts. Here we had no problem putting it in third. Why was it in third and not fourth? I was afraid of going over the speed limit. Third ends around 180 anyway. Synchronized the RPM through the AWD, everything connected, saw everything, set it up, drove, took 3 measurements. The first 2 samples were 229 and 231 horsepower. Nothing was done. They were rolling measurements in general. I didn't want to take them at all and show them, but since they turned out nice and matched, we can consider them. After that, I turned off air conditioning, climate control, heating, everything in the world. Everything that could load the engine even more, and we got 238 horsepower. It seems like in all new cars that are there after 2010, all additional loads should be turned off in the throttle to the floor mode. But this is not the first Toyota I've seen this on. I turned on sport mode, and in the last one, by the way, what else changed in the last one, I turned off the traction control. I don't know how it can affect on the stand, with the stand being synchronized. Maybe somehow there stopped those clutches slipping. I think it just goes yes and goes for all the money. Nevertheless, even Toyota's best result is 238 horsepower and 325 newtons of torque. So we're down 11 horses and 31 newtons per meter. I wonder if this will be reflected in the quarter-mile race. Horsepower and torque are of course an important aspect of automotive marketing, but recently these horsepowers don't always translate into good car dynamics and often don't match reality. So right now we're checking the acceleration to 100 km/h and then having a quarter-mile race. According to the passport, Toyota gets up to 100 in 8.5 seconds. If you remember, the 3.5 liters atmospheric engine with 8-speed automatic gearbox helps it in it, and we should say that Highlander does not deceive. Its best result is 8.8 seconds. By the way, the maximum speed of Highlander is 180 km/h. Mazda promises its consumers 8.6 seconds. 2.5 liters turbo engine and 6-speed automatic gearbox are responsible for it. In reality, CX-9 accelerates in 8.8 as well. And here we understand that there will be a real fight in quarter-mile race. And yes, the top speed of Mazda is higher, 210 km/h. So here is the moment of truth. Both cars start off with commendable passion, and it seems that Toyota is about to take the lead, but somewhere in the middle of the distance, Mazda gets its second breath and piles on Toyota's body. In the second attempt, it looks like even two. In this discipline, CX-9 pulls out the victory. Both SUVs have all-wheel drive system. The Highlander has a system of dynamic torque vectoring. This means that the car can transfer up to 50% of torque to the rear axle when necessary, and when cornering, it transfers torque to the rear outer wheel, which helps the car literally twist into the corner. We have special stands with rollers to check all-wheel drive. We start with diagonally unlocked wheels, where Toyota is expected to handle the problem easily. Then we have the traction for only one front wheel, and this is where the Highlander had a hard time. I have to try different techniques, different speeds and modes. The result is approximately the same, and I would not call it a 100% success. But with the rear wheel, everything is simple as in Toyota's presentations, clear and fast. Mazda's all-wheel drive is called iActive AWD, and it is synchronized with the control of traction vectors on the axles. Everything is controlled by electronics, which determines 200 times per second where to transfer the torque. I must say that the diagonal on the CX-9 somehow did not work right way, but then I found the button with the electronic assistant and everything immediately worked. With the front wheel, where Toyota began to have problems, Mazda shows great class and moves out of the stance without any visible effort. But when the only rear wheel has the traction with the asphalt, problems began, which I could not solve by any manipulation. The cherry on the cake, I get a letter from Mazda. And now about the prices. Mazda CX-9 is offered in Ukrainian market in two versions, premium and top. In usual time, premium costs about $54,000. The top is $2,000 more expensive. But there are special prices for limited stock, which offer premium for $48,900 and top for $52,600. The Highlander has also two versions, Elegance and Premium. The Elegance starts at $49,400, the Premium at $59,900. There are no special prices.